Great. Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much indeed. So I've had a wonderful few days here, despite the very heavy rain at the start of the week. And I wasn't sure how many of you would still be here this morning. I gathered that the attendance might be a bit lighter. So I thought I'd take a punt and just show you some of the pictures from my bike ride yesterday, which was just fantastic. Out 90 kilometres into the backcountry. Really very, very nice. Thanks to this guy, a local here, who sent me out and really gave me a good working out over the hills, over the gravel, and back down to a very tasty couple of beers down at the beach in your town. But now that there are some of you here, I'll move on to my talk. What I want to do is to talk a little bit to introduce why I think we need these novel solutions to try and help manage care, but also about how we use research and care together. And this, to my mind, really is the vision for moving forward. It's integrating solutions that have research and data at their core, implementing them into practice so that clinicians and patients see the value from research. We then get their full cooperation, but they get a lot back in the process, and then you can iterate and test in real time as we move forward. Now, IBD is extraordinarily heterogeneous. It's probably one of the most heterogeneous common chronic diseases that we look at after today, both from the outside and, of course, as we see as endoscopists, from the inside, both by endoscopy, radiology, and imaging. And as we've shown already across this meeting, we know that the disease course is extremely variable, and it is very, very hard to predict what is going to happen to a patient over time. I showed you this on Wednesday. We know that the disease is progressive, but we also know that it doesn't progress for everyone. So a one-size-fits-all solution is no good at all. It's a monitoring approach that we know is what's absolutely key. Solutions like what Michael's talked about is one way around this. And in so doing, we want to get to a point where we can improve patient care. So this is the current state of play, far too commonly all around the world. Patients get sick, they feel rubbish, we've got quality of life here plotted on the y-axis. We then poison them with repeated courses of steroids that do nothing to alter the natural history of the disease. This is why it's so important that we try and change some of the outdated systems like you have here, not because of your best efforts, but because of the restrictions that are put on you by backward-thinking government and legislation. What we need to do is intervene earlier with our effective drugs so that we can change the natural history of the disease, and ultimately, it's about improving patients' quality of life. And so monitoring is all very well and good, but you have to act on the results of monitoring, and to do that, you need to have access to effective therapies. And with time, this access will be utterly transformative. Stephen was very down on genetics earlier. I'm going to be much more upbeat about it because I think it is sitting at the heart of what we're doing with IBD research. The overlap, as I mentioned on Wednesday, between druggable targets and gene hits is very, very high. And a lot of additional druggable targets are going to come through that. But we will get to risk as well. We already have a couple of gene variants that are associated with risk, but most of what we're doing in this domain is just underpowered. And through digital tech, we will be able to follow longitudinally tens of thousands of people with cheap global screening arrays. So we can do a GWAS for $30 or $40 a person now. And then we will be able to get very meaningful answers about risk. And then when our immunologists can teach us about biology, we'll be able to move slightly further away from this pure reliance on monitoring, and we'll be able to give patients the right drugs at the right time. Now, all of this gets fabulously complicated, and what most of us who look after big cohorts of IBD patients now really recognize is the amount of work that is involved in intensively monitoring patients with regular calprotectin, with regular clinic visits, changing what we're doing based on the results. I mean, it's so bad that several of our brightest and most brilliant IBD nurses in the UK have fled here just to get away from the sheer number of patients that we're looking after. So we need some integrated novel solutions to get around this. Now what I'm not going to do is present 20 slides, each of which is going to have a very superficial look at 20 different solutions. That would be one way of doing this, but rather I'm going to take a deeper dive into one solution, which I'm not going to say to you is the only solution, but one solution, so that we can look at the power that could be generated from a digital solution for patients, and one that then has research and data at its core to enable us as a community and to get this loop going where we can really make a change. Now, Oshi Health is a New York tech startup that has been predominantly funded by Takeda, but with $25 million in Series A funding. So it's well resourced to try and really tackle this question problem. It's generated as its current product a consumer-based symptom tracking device. So primarily, and this is in North America only at the moment, a tool that's downloaded by patients directly from the App Store or from Google Play, and they're then able to do a number of things as I'll go through. But the idea is that you take this mobile tech solution, you add in the connectivity with healthcare providers, you then use the data to learn, and then ultimately what we do is we get to a position where we can truly personalize treatment. But to do that, we need very large data sets from lots of people. Some of that will be very deep dives into a smaller number of very, very highly characterized patients, but I'm absolutely convinced that a lot of it will involve very large data sets where patients are in charge of the data collection and follow-up. So in this scenario, what you do is you start with a self-management tool for patients. You then work towards an integrated healthcare solution where that talks to the healthcare providers in a similar way to what Michael was showing in IBD Smart. And then you move forward to taking the data sets that you've got so that you can advise patients on the treatment. And towards the end, I'll come back to just two quite different examples of how I think this is going to be operating in the very near-term future. But let me just tell you a little bit about where it's at the moment in these three main domains, which is enabling patients to track their symptoms, to learn, so for patients to be able to learn about what's going on, and to do that in a hyper-personalized manner. And then there is a Q&A system built in. Now, tracking is difficult, because we know that if we just track patient symptoms in the clinic, that only tells us part of the story. We know that we need to add in at least some marker of information. We can't colonoscope our patients every 3 months, so building an account protecting test, imperfect that it is a very, very good solution. The IBD doc and other account protecting home testing systems are flawed at the moment for one major reason, and that is cost. You cannot get a home test count protecting done for less than $40, this is US, per assay, and that's without including all the setup costs. In my biochemistry lab in our hospital in Edinburgh, where we do 7,000 to 8,000 count protecting assays a year, they're done at cost for about $15 a go. So you have to get at least that cheap, if not cheaper, I think, before you can then use a count protecting test at home. I have this idea that maybe patients have a pack of yes-no count protecting wipes in the bathroom, and then they go to the toilet in the morning, and the first wipe after the morning's ablutions gives a yes-no calibrated signal. If it's positive, they then go and do a slightly more expensive qualitative test, or send the samples off to the lab. I think it's that kind of system where patients can then go day by day by day that will allow us to get a tight control that will almost certainly help. So this is tracking. Learning is for patients, we know this is so important, right? There's a huge amount of literature out there, it's a bit of a minefield, not all of it is relevant to patients. A system like Oshi can take a person's phenotyping, you can then say, right, you've got small bowel Crohn's disease, these are the treatments you're currently on, these are the things that you're tracking, let's direct you to this part of the website. And in the UK, what we're looking to do when we launch Oshi is we're tying in with Crohn's Colitis UK, the main patient organisation, They've got wonderful information on their website, but just to search, it's quite difficult to find. So helping patients in a hyper-personalized way learn with signposting is very, very important. And this content personalization, I think, will be a huge strength. And a system that learns more about you as you go along with time, and then gives you more directed information. And this is what Google and Facebook and Tesco have done so well for many, many years. The original Tesco Club Card experiment in 1993 in the UK, in 5 sites, that meant they became the world-leading supermarket brand, was because they started to learn very few details about people's shopping habits. But that hyper-personalization, people like it. When you do the research, people like to be given targeted information more often than not. And then another strength of this platform, again, there are other solutions to this, is a proper curated Q&A. I think as physicians and nurses, we worry a little bit about the wild west of the internet. Patients are getting a lot of their learnings from there. They're getting it mostly peer-to-peer from unregulated forums. And that's where there's a lot of helpful stuff, but there's all manner of crazy nonsense there too. All the patients that come back, yeah, absolutely convinced, Dr. Lees, this is the diet for me. I'm going to eat nothing but beef and drink water for the next year, and my Crohn's will be cured. You know, this is part of us protecting against that. It's then giving patients access from anywhere in the world to healthcare providers who can then answer questions, and with time building a bank of Q&A that can then be searchable. So Oshi is in North America at the moment. The US just launched in Canada. It's coming to the UK very soon. It's being translated for a variety of European markets, with no immediate plans for Australia and New Zealand, but a very obvious market for them to come to. It's being downloaded at a good rate. It's currently at 30,000 active users in North America. And the advantage of having this user base is that what it allows to do is to react to what's going on. And this is where I think the future of these kinds of systems are. So this is purely from the consumer basis, and I'll come to the research angles in a minute, which will excite me much more. But from a consumer basis, when you have this number of users, and you have a team of developers, you can then see what's working well, see what's not, iterate and move forwards. And this is where IT and software and app development has been ahead of the game for quite some time. There are 3 versions of this particular system. There's a patient application, there's the research platform that I'll talk to you about in a little bit, and then there's going to be a care platform that will be the solution that provides that interface between a patient and a hospital. So you could set this up, we could look to set this up in Edinburgh and have dashboards for the nurses, and it's all very much bespoke for what's going on with our patient population. In this kind of model, what you have is you have the patients on one side and you have the hospital system on the other side, and you have some kind of degree of integration. It's really, really hard, I think, to go to any kind of system and truly integrate with the electronic medical record. Because, you know, for example, just within the UK, there are dozens of different electronic medical record systems in operation. To get behind the NHS firewalls without true integration is really, really hard. So you need some kind of solution in the middle that gets you around this. But the principles are the same, and it's very similar to what Michael was talking about. Patients track themselves, you do your own tracking, you review the results together, and then you take action. Okay, so it's just exactly what I was talking about before. You monitor your patients, and then you act on the results of the monitoring. Now, the excitement to me comes when you take this and then you properly turbocharge it with high-quality data. So what we're doing with PREdiCCt, as I mentioned on Wednesday, is we're taking this very large group of patients. We're using Oshi as the research platform. So we've got, built into their app, we've got all of the questionnaires that we want to get answers to, and it allows patients a very, very user-friendly experience to complete these data and to do it during follow-up. Because we're asking our patients at the moment to do this every month, and we'll be asking them to do it more commonly in the future. Currently we're following people for 24 months, but with this system that's basically free, what we're able to do is follow people at no cost for a longer period of time. And then the thing that excites me more than anything is the fact that we can take the user base of the app and then we can go direct to patients. We can digitally consent them so they can download the research tool. We can then get DNA via post, and then what we can do is we can take 30 or 40,000 people and do a significant GWAS experiment to look at genetic risk factors, for example, about flare. And that's just one of the examples there. So this is just going back to the schematic I showed you on Wednesday. The EMR extract goes into the database, so you can do that from anywhere. It doesn't need to be integrated. That's me or one of the fellows more likely, or a researcher now sitting at the computer phenotyping the patients just like you would for any study. But we keep that information central. We're going to pipe that data back to patients, so patients have a curated summary of everything that we have in their system on their hands. Then the regular phenotyping and update they do themselves. So they have that tracking that was talked about, and then they bring that back to the clinic. So patients come to me in the clinic, they have all their information at their fingertips. They're empowered with that, and I think that's what they want, what they're telling us they want. And I think when they're that engaged, and when physicians start to see the benefits from that, then the physicians can then think, okay, I should put my patient forward into this study, or get involved with this program, because I can really powerfully sense the benefits. Just imagine how quickly we could spread research and integrate it into clinical practice if the clinicians are asking patients to sign up because they truly see the benefit of what's happening. Two examples to finish up about the power of this system, about how it could transform our care and our patients' lives, I think next year, from two very different spheres. First, genetics, because genetics is changing the way we manage IBD, and it is utterly transformative in the potential it can give us. The PANT study has looked at 1,500 patients with Crohn's disease, treated with anti-TNF for the first time and followed prospectively. We set up this experiment in the UK, Tara Coleman led this out of Exeter, to look for genes that were associated with response to TNF. We did this in 1,500 patients and we found nothing at all. It was flat. We may just be underpowered here still, but still we found nothing. But we then looked to see if the genetics would tell us anything about this vexed problem, which is immunogenicity. How often people would generate antibodies against infliximab or adalimumab. And we found this spike, this very strong signal, chromosome 6, that is located to this HLA allele. HLA PQA1 star 05. So what? Well, this allele is common in 40%, it's present in 40% of Caucasians. And then look at this, okay? This is a person treated with infliximab who doesn't have this risk allele, who's on combination therapy, our standard best practice, and within a year, this is the development of antibodies. It's pretty high. You know, 40%. Bear in mind, this is with combination therapy, and this is also the thing that is going to stop the drug from working. Our best drugs we're going to stop from working. And in Crohn's disease, of course, if you can't get away with an anti-TNF, 10% chance of the next drug really, really working. This is what then happens if you're on monotherapy. It's a terrible idea. If you're on monotherapy, you're going to get antibodies. Don't do it. What happens if you've got a risk allele on combination therapy? It's as bad as monotherapy. What happens then if you've got a risk allele and you're on monotherapy? It's utterly hopeless. Within a year, almost everyone develops antibodies for infliximab. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is genetics in the clinic, directly applicable right now. So why is this so important? Why is this relevant in an integrated novel digital healthcare tool? Because we need a way in which we can deliver this to patients now. Patients need to know this information. So an app where we could also collect the data for patients, so we could do a big genetic experiment at the same time, but give patients and physicians this really, really useful information would be so powerful. In case you're wondering, yes, the same applies for adalimumab. We just know it's a less immunogenic molecule, so the antibody rates are lower overall. Imagine if we also then find similar information about the microbiota and how it affects treatment and outcome and follow-up. We need a way of transforming this for patients. We need a digital solution to do that. And what about all these environmental factors that we talked about on Wednesday? What do we do with all that information? Some of this is very, very relevant to patients, okay? I told you about all the information that we're collecting, all these different questionnaires. Some of it's just interesting. Some of it will allow us to signpost patients to information. You know, if they're depressed, let's signpost them to a bit of information. If they're struggling with sleep, let's work out a solution, maybe an app-based solution to get there. Grit and resilience is one of the things that fascinates me most. Laurie Kiefer and Marta Dubinsky in Mount Sinai, New York, have a whole grit program called IBD Grit. They're really interested in this because this is a teachable skill. You know that patient that comes to the clinic where you sort of slightly, take a deep breath before they come in, probably with mum still in tow. The person that just doesn't cope very well with anything that's going on. In contrast to that other person for whom it's a breeze. They go to the toilet 10 times a day, 5 times overnight, they're clearly in pain, they clearly can't eat, but they just get on with it. Now this grit, this resilience, is a teachable skill. So imagine if as a byproduct we can have working within the app a resilience score that will pick out those people who are at most risk. Take the bottom 10%, give them an app-based learning, because we can't afford psychologists in the UK, I bet you can't either. And then take the bottom 1% and then get those patients to that precious resource which is the psychologist. Teach them these skills, and that would then change the way that person's outcome would be in practice. So with PREdiCCt, we'll test this in the next 2 years to see whether or not low resilience predicts worse outcomes. We think it probably will. We know it's associated with poorer quality of life from the start. So that's where we are. That's a deep dive into one solution. I'm not saying it's the solution, but to my mind, it's a very exciting possibility. It's the one where we're going to integrate research with clinical practice so that we can feed back the results immediately to patients in a way that's not just, this is what we did, this is what we found. This is what we did, this is what we found, this is how we're going to help you now, both with signposting, both with content, both with your curated summary of your health notes in your hands to help move things forward for you. So with that, I'll say thank you very much.